I'm Joel Goldstein from the foundation of Laguna Woods Village. The foundation is a charity here in the village which provides temporary financial assistance to residents of the village when they have a need, and also provides a variety of community-wide services, such as helping with the COVID vaccination program that we had at the beginning of the COVID epidemic. We have sponsorship for fall prevention classes in collaboration with Memorial Care, and we help provide emergency response systems for villagers who need it. Our slogan is Neighbors Helping Neighbors. Been in the village for over 25 years. We today are presenting another episode in a series we call Planning for the Inevitable. This has to do with planning for our eventual incapacity and end of life. It's a topic that people don't always want to talk about. And we have a special guest today whom Deborah will introduce.
Okay. I'm Deborah David. I'm also on the board of the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village. And as Joel said, a lot of people are reluctant to talk about their wishes if they should become incapacitated or at end of life. And research has found that only about 1 in 3 adults has any kind of written advance directive or living will. And even among those of us who are over 65, as most of the residents in Laguna Woods Village, it's fewer than 1 in 2. It's fewer than half. So with us today to talk about that reluctance and hopefully to motivate listeners to take action is Dr. Sonia Segal. Dr. Segal is board certified in internal medicine and in geriatrics. And getting certified in geriatrics is sort of, it requires extra training. It's sort of like a postdoc on top of other medical training. And she serves as clinical professor of geriatrics and holds the Archstone Endowed Chair at UC Irvine in geriatrics and directs their geriatric fellowship program to try to encourage other physicians to take that extra training to become geriatric physicians. She's based at UC Irvine Center in Orange and in Laguna Hills. So, Dr. Segal, thank you very much for being with us here today. In your experience, why do you think people are reluctant to plan?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today to talk about this very important subject. To answer your question, I think there are a lot of reasons why people are reluctant to discuss end of life, advanced care planning, and to put documents and wishes in writing and in place for themselves. Age is an interesting thing. It creeps up on you, and you don't really realize that it's happening and that you're aging, and sometimes until there's a catastrophe. And often, when there's a very acute medical issue that occurs, we're often caught we're often caught unaware. And, it's only then that we realize that we really need to take some action to protect ourselves and to advocate for our own wishes. I also think that there's a sentiment that people don't want to jinx themselves. If they're enjoying a healthy lifestyle, if they have a good quality of life, sometimes thinking about what might happen or the inevitable or, circumstances around death, people feel like that might just bring them some bad luck, and they don't necessarily want to approach that. I've seen that in people that are very close to me who have had some very sudden and acute medical issues occur, and there's been a great deal of reluctance to really plan for what might happen if their surgeries or procedures don't go well. I also think that there's a lack of education among the healthcare professionals, right, among healthcare teams. Certainly when I was in medical school, and even in my residency training, it wasn't something that we were taught. We weren't taught to have these conversations. Our training really focuses on, how do you provide the best, most acute care to keep people well and alive in any and all setting. And only recently has the healthcare profession been sort of willing to take these conversations on and to learn about it. Certainly in geriatrics, we have extra training in how to have these conversations and things to think about. But many primary care providers probably have some reluctance because they simply don't have the training.
A lot of the residents, or not a lot, but we have many residents in Laguna Woods Village who don't have family members. They may have outlived them, or their family members may be in other countries or across the United States, elsewhere. And they may be very hesitant to even name somebody if they should be in an emergency situation, to be decision makers or to represent them. What do you suggest people like that consider or do?
Yes, I see that a fair amount in my practice here in Laguna Hills. I have a fair number of folks who, through my work in clinic and also in education, I found who don't have a readily available surrogate decision maker. So they may not have children, or their children might live at quite a distance. They may have outlived their children and extended family members, as you mentioned. And those are difficult situations. We really encourage folks to think about their network. So do they have a trusted friend, a trusted extended family member? Maybe they don't live close by, maybe they're in another state, but somebody that they could reach out to, somebody that they feel some affinity for. Maybe they can forge a relationship, even later in life, to help plan for the future and get some legal documents in place. I do encourage folks who have, really have no one to contact an elder law attorney. There are some avenues that people can take to have documents put together and people named to make decisions for them. I think it's much more prudent to actually explore these options rather than to not pursue advanced care planning and to really document end-of-life goals if there is no one. You really want to take advantage and be able to advocate for yourself when you can, even if you have no one. I think elder law attorneys can assist and get people connected with maybe the public guardian's office or private fiduciaries who can help to advocate for you.
In addition to not having somebody readily available, what are some of the other reasons that you've come across in your practice why people are reluctant to engage in planning?
I think that's a great question, and I think the answer for that is very individual. In addition to I think there are cultural barriers sometimes. People, depending on what someone's faith is, what someone's cultural background might be, these are conversations sometimes that just don't take place normally or might feel uncomfortable. And often, again, medical appointments are very busy. People have multiple chronic conditions that they're talking about or need follow-up on, so there might not seem like there's enough time to talk about this very important issue that can sometimes be time-consuming. I think there's also fear. I think there's fear in that, you're talking about something, I think many people are afraid of death. And they're afraid of what that end-of-life process might look like. And so it can be uncomfortable to talk about and plan for. A lot of the time, a lot of the questions that we ask people about end of life and their end of life goals can be very challenging to think about. I mean, we're asking people if they want CPR, right? If they want their heart and lungs to be resuscitated. We're asking if they want artificial nutrition. We're asking if they want to be hospitalized and receive, medications and what kinds of medications. In addition to who would be the decision maker for these very big, and heavy decisions. And I think the answers are all very complicated, and you really do need to sit down and think about, the answers for yourself and what they mean to you. And those are hard conversations to have. Those are hard things to think about. And, particularly in today's world where everyone's very busy, everyone's being pulled in many different directions. We faced a lot of uncertainty and anxiety with COVID and the pandemic. People might not feel like it's the right time or they're not in the right space to be thinking about these things.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the consequences you've observed if somebody hasn't done that kind of planning in advance?
Yeah, I've seen some very unfortunate situations, and people who have not put together an advanced care planning document or have not documented their wishes often find themselves not being able to express what it is that they would want for themselves because they may be incapacitated or be unable to speak or express their desire. And there's no one there to advocate for them. In the healthcare setting, if advanced care documents are not available or there is no surrogate decision maker, we're obligated to do everything. So, in the field, for example, if someone is found down, if their heart has stopped, emergency medical personnel are required to do everything, to do whatever it takes to restart the heart, which might mean electric shocks, CPR, et cetera, which can be very traumatic and may not be in line with someone's healthcare goals. And so in a hospital setting, if their heart does stop, if there is nothing in place, they are considered a full code and we are obligated to do everything. And advanced care documents guide your medical team, they guide the emergency medical team about what your wishes might be. And I've seen some very unfortunate cases in which people did not put together their wishes and they've been on life support for many more weeks than I think they would have wanted. They have received, more CPR than they probably would have desired had they known the consequences. And I've seen families be torn about when trying to make decisions for their loved one. It's very heartbreaking to see children have to make decisions for their parents about whether to keep someone on life support, whether to keep someone on a feeding tube and have them continue artificial nutrition, whether to withdraw life support. Mm-hmm. Those are some of the most difficult and gut-wrenching decisions people have to make. And it's just very unfortunate if the surrogate decision maker, the child, the spouse, doesn't have direction. And there's a lot of second guessing, there's a lot of guilt, and it's very emotionally difficult for these folks.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the village, our social services department is equipped to counsel people about these challenges and can provide some help. Do you have any ideas about how people can overcome this reluctance? Any suggestions what people might do? Have you had experience with people getting past these problems?
Yeah, I think that, I encourage people to look at advanced care planning from the lens of advocacy. They're advocating for themselves. We all work so hard to advocate for ourselves in life, right? Our personal desires, our goals, we work hard for them. And this is a topic that people shouldn't let go of. They shouldn't let fear or, some reluctance hold them back from making their own decisions and really letting their wishes be known when they may not be able to communicate them. So I really encourage patients to take a moment, take some quiet time to think about what it is that they would want for themselves and really focus in on that advocacy piece or advocating for themselves. So that would be the first thing, the first step. If they have questions thereafter, I would encourage them to talk to their healthcare provider. So, Medicare has an annual wellness visit that Medicare beneficiaries can take advantage of. This is a very special kind of visit that doesn't necessarily focus on chronic health conditions that the individual is experiencing, but it focuses on prevention and preventive care and something called social determinants of health. So, do you have the social engagement that you desire in your life? Are you financially able to manage yourself well? There's an opportunity to screen for cognitive issues, and there's a section there where the individual can discuss with their primary care clinician advanced care planning and what it is they want for themselves. And often the doctor's office will have documents, a starting place for folks to just take a look at, to read, to see what in the state of California is available. And they can I recommend that they take those documents home, they read through them, and bring them back after having discussed with family or friends, so that some steps can be taken thereafter.
I noticed that you're stressing not just end of life, but we're in a period when we may be incapacitated and unable to make these decisions well. So this is not just for the final stages.
Absolutely. 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 You want to advocate for yourself, and you want to let the people around you who care about you, who might be in a position to make decisions for you, know what you would want for yourself, even if you were in the hospital for, a minor procedure, right? Even if you had to go to the emergency room for, a non-life-threatening illness, you just never really know what might occur. Right. And so it's important for people to know. And I can't stress enough letting those around you, those individuals who you might name as your decision maker, really having an open conversation with them. I see a lot of patients who have documents in place, who have decisions made, but the individuals that they've named in their paperwork and in their documentation may not know they've been named. And if they know they've been named, they may not know what people have decided for themselves. And it's really important to have that open conversation so that there's no ambiguity around an individual's choices.
I had a conversation with a neighbor who's ever single. She's not been married, has no children, no living family. And I walk with her occasionally, and we started talking about this subject. And she has somebody named, and that person knows, but I'm the neighbor, and I may be the one who is the first responder, shall I say, if she doesn't pick up her newspaper or something else like that. After our conversation, she decided to let me and a couple of other friends know where her information is available and how we can access it. And I thought, well, this is making progress.
Yeah.
This is a very important kind of thing to do. So I think you've answered questions about what role that healthcare providers can take. But are healthcare providers sometimes reluctant to talk about these issues? I haven't had that conversation with my own primary care provider.
Yeah, I think that my sense is there probably is some reluctance among primary care, folks out there. As I mentioned, there is very little training in medical school, or I should say there was very little training. Certainly when I was in school and in residency, we didn't focus on these conversations so much. I'm happy to report, though, that things are changing. At UCI, at our medical school, we do have sessions dedicated toward aging, chronic conditions, and end-of-life conversations. And they're had from the lens not just of primary care, but also from OB physicians who see very difficult cases, emergency medicine physicians who see very traumatic cases in the emergency room. And so medical students today and trainees are being exposed, and they are having much more training on conversations. But I think today, my hope is that the average primary care doctor out there is comfortable and is willing to engage with their patient to have this conversation.
Well, as a doctor, let me ask you, if you were to indicate to your physician or health provider that you want to talk about this, would that be freeing up the provider to be willing to go into it if they were reluctant? Because you're signaling, yes, this is okay to talk about.
Yes, I think if the patient brings it up, it certainly opens the door for that conversation. I think no physician wants to engage in this conversation and make their patient feel like they think the sky's falling down. And I think there might be a little bit of concern on that part. If the physician brings it up just randomly out of the blue, I don't think they want the patient to feel uncomfortable about that. But certainly if the patient brings it up, it opens the door. Absolutely. And I would take advantage of the annual wellness visit. It's a great opportunity to have that conversation.
Or even to make a special appointment just for this.
I think absolutely. I think if one has this on their mind, to set up a visit specifically to talk about advanced care planning, end of life goals, I think is very, very, very important. It gives you and your clinician enough time to talk about this. And your clinician can sit down and really focus in on this one very important aspect and not be distracted by other healthcare issues that they might be concerned about. I think it's very important.
You're based in part in Laguna Hills and in our backyard, so to speak. So could you tell us a little bit more about your facility in Laguna Hills? Absolutely.
We are so happy to have a clinic here in Laguna Hills. It's right adjacent to Laguna Woods. It's part of the UC Irvine Health Community Clinics, and we have a lovely facility that offers geriatric medicine. So we're internal medicine and family medicine, geriatric trained providers. We see patients in primary care and in consultation. In our office, we have specialists from UCI, that range anywhere from physical medicine and rehab, orthopedics, nephrology, cardiology, endocrinology, you name it. We have folks there that are seeing patients in this office. It's really a pleasure to be here.
You're director of the Geriatrics Fellowship Program at UC Irvine. How do you encourage or try to recruit people to go into geriatrics? I've been told that geriatrics isn't a very high-paying specialty.
It may not be the highest paying profession, but we certainly are a happy group of people. Geriatricians love what they do. They love their patients. They love every aspect of patient care as it relates to aging. And our goal is to have our patients lead, independent, active lives where they thrive. And, we are always looking for dedicated young physicians who want to participate in the joys of patient care and longitudinal relationships with people. And so if you know anyone, let me know.
We're coming near the end of our time. What's the single thing you'd like to leave the audience with today?
I think I want people to know that they shouldn't be afraid of advanced care planning and putting end-of-life goals together. I think they should be empowered to advocate for themselves and really think about and document what they would want for themselves so that those around them can act on their behalf in good faith.
Thank you very much, Dr. Segal. This is the third in a series on planning for the inevitable that the foundation is sponsoring. The previous sessions have been on advanced directives and on estate planning, and there will be a following one on your digital legacy, which is something that most of us don't think about. The series will be broadcast on Village Television and will also be available on YouTube. Links to it and other supplemental material are available on the Foundation's website, which is foundation of Laguna Woods Village.org. And you can get help from the Social Services Department, which is on the first floor of the community building here in the village. We hope that this series is helping people be motivated to start the process of doing such planning. We would like you to tell other people about the series and trust that it's been helpful to villagers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.